Heyo, duckies and dice fiends! Welcome back! It is the Table Talk Show. I am Kay. I am one of your co-hosts. This is David, and we both agree it feels like it's been a very long time since we've done this. And we're not quite sure why, but here we are. This is one of those actually rare weeks where we do not have a guest. And we are talking... So, let's be upfront. Daggerheart playtest started today. We got to talk at least a little bit about that, because you cannot talk about TTRPGs right now without addressing the Death Star. But also, we want to talk about roll tables, because we've been having some fun with roll tables over here. And, yeah. So, before we dive in, I don't have, for once, I don't have a whole lot going on right now. Find us, David and I will be here Thursday, Friday, playing Baldur's Gate 3. You can find me on Sunday over at the Sword and Key channel playing Barton in Trophy Dark, which we have talked about Trophy Dark here before. It's been a joy to play so far. And then that's kind of it until next Tuesday. We'll be right back here with more Table Talk Show. And then the following weekend, I will be at PAX East, but David will be here streaming. But David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
Hi, I continue to exist. Hi, I'm David, and this is the Chaotic Tuesday Table Show of Talking, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusion so that everybody can have a good time.
And like I said, roll tables. David, this was a topic you were excited to talk about. And for some of you who hang out in our Discord, You know why we've been super focused on roll tables. We're gonna approach that with kind of a lighter touch in this space right here and now, but suffice it to say, we've been messing around with some roll tables and what we can do with them that makes them fun, that makes them chaotic, that makes them easier on a GM.
So, it's from my earliest days of TTRPGs, I've been using roll tables. In the very first game I played, the GM of that game, hey DC, the GM of that game used roll tables for like loot that we found in places, and then also used roll tables for encounters. And I think he was using stuff straight out of the Dungeon Master's Guide in 2nd edition, but I'm not 100% sure. But many years, full rubber bot, are you behaving? Many years later, when I started GMing on my own, Kay and I have talked before about how some systems take forever. I forgot to turn my lights on. Take forever to. It's bright. It hurts. It takes forever to generate a character. Like, you need the book, and you need a pen and a paper, and then you also need the actual character sheet, and then you need at least 2 college courses in Excel in order to like finish putting them. And so what I did was I came up with a one-shot that you could play while you put together.
What'd you do, David?
I will tell you later. But I made a one-shot where you could play without too much dice rolling, where you didn't need a character sheet. Everybody had the same stats. It was fine. And the really hey Bear, over on YouTube, welcome. But the idea was every attack you made was a wild magic surge, and I got a table of 10,000 wild magic effects. And so whenever you did an attack, you didn't have to roll to hit. You did have to roll for damage, but you didn't have to roll for hit. Didn't have to worry about AC. You didn't have to worry about edge. But you did have to roll what was it? I think it was 4d10.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to roll something, and so like I'd slide the dice over to you, and you'd roll it, and then I'd go and look it up on the 10,000 table, and I'd be like, and then everybody would look at me and be like, "What happened?" I'm like, "You don't know." And sometimes it'd be like, "Oh, you feel cold," and other times it'd be like, "Ah, everybody's looking a little green around the gills. Oh, look, everybody's a kobold now. Everybody except for you."
How'd that happen?
And it added a bunch of randomness that I could use while people were doing other things. And circling back to the idea of tables today, at every single iteration of everything we've done, we've had to cook up a roll table, at least one roll table for. So like Godplane, we have multiple documents with multiple roll tables in them, including a roll table for what the next plane is.
What water tastes like.
Yeah.
That's a personal favorite.
Oh,
we
man,
traumatized a lot of people with that roll table.
But with our one shots, there's usually something that we need a roll table for. And
Our holiday roll table, our Christmas Wild Magic Surge for
right.
what we did for the Nightmare, good God, Lullaby for the Christmas Lich. Like, I pulled it up before this. We had some good stuff.
And so until we like wandered until we started working on the thing that we're working on now, I didn't quite realize how central to the things we build that roll tables are. And so both for GMs who are designing things for their games, for people who have to generate a lot of characters for whatever reason, and for people who are really just trying to nail down what their characters are doing, because like embodying a character is really natural for Kay and I. Like, I don't necessarily like do the voices, but I get my head into the space of the character. Hey Rex. Like when I play Kessler, I'm just like, listen, I'm not like this person. This isn't me. I am not Mary Suing. This dark, dumb idiot is not who I am as a human being, and doesn't even represent my darker urges. My darker urges are way more well thought out than Kessler going, ooh, piece of candy, and then like wandering off.
Ooh, teeth.
Right. And then turning around and chastising Kinley for being easily distracted. For being like, Kinley, you're always headed in the wrong direction, as Kessler wanders in the wrong direction.
I mean, to be fair, Kessler is hyper focused. Kinley is easily distracted. Kessler's like, there's a tooth somewhere in this world and I will find it.
Right. But for people who, you know, that isn't necessarily as natural, like, you know, even for Kay and I, who have an easy time, we've both have rolled a d20 to figure out what our character would do in a situation. And so there are a lot of different ways you can make a roll table that takes guesswork out of things that you're trying to accomplish, whether you are running a game in a setting or building a new system or generating a character or just trying to make a decision about something. And yeah, so far has been extremely helpful.
So I want to talk a little bit. So we spoke before because Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send us the Book of Many Things and the Deck of Many More Things. And we spent an entire episode. Hey, Logar.
I could go on such a long rant about Mary Suing because people have misconceptions about it, and it's like because Stephen King is sort of like the king of Mary Sue's. There's like the male version of Mary Sue. Gary Stu. Like Stephen King Gary Stews, but not in the way people think. Because does he stick himself in his stories? Most famously in the Dark Tower series? Absolutely. But he doesn't Mary Sue right? Right?
Called out. For those watching the VOD, Logar just said, I could go on such a long rant about David, every time.
He doesn't Mary Sue in the Dark Tower. It's a self-insert, which is a different thing. Instead, he Mary Sue's in The Stand, which I have a lot of complaints about. Look, there's a whole Stephen King fandom discussion that I'm not going to get into. But for those at home who do not who aren't as deeply entrenched in the mechanics of literary circles that Kay and I may be, Mary Suing is part self-insert, but it is an idealized version, and unbelievably and completely ungrounded idealized version of yourself in a story. Uh, um, if you've read Twilight, you know
Bella
what
Swan.
Mary Suing is. And there are other authors who have done this, and I'm really like reaching in my head for other examples. But basically, when you're like, oh, where like you walk into a room and the dude is like, there was this guy and he was handsome and he was tall. Ben Shapiro, Benny Shaps. Don't read Ben Shapiro's books. Don't give him money. But I've listened to a podcast where they read sections of the book that he wrote, and again, you walk in a room and then there's like, there's a guy in the corner who's big and dark and handsome, and we're not going to talk about how like a dark
Tall, dark, and handsome.
A tall, dark, and handsome is white coated, but it's a tall, handsome, muscly, smart, good at everything person who has no drawbacks, who looks suspiciously like the guy who wrote the book, and you're like, come on, meow.
It's what Rob Liefeld tried to do with Shatterstar, except Rob Liefeld is not interesting, so Shatterstar sucked until someone took Shatterstar away. But we talked about, Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send David and I, hey, welcome, Cools! Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send David and I the Book of Many Things and the Deck of Many More Things, and we spent an entire episode talking about how they have actually done a lot of work to set up the Deck of Many Things to now be like a generator for you, right? Where you can use these to generate dungeons, to generate characters, to do things very quickly that you need. So we're using the term roll table a little bit loosey-goosey here because I do think you can absolutely use the Book and Deck of Many Things as a roll table generator now. I believe that the tall dark, it came from being dark-haired, so you'd have that clash, that the dark hair with the white skin was supposed to be very striking, usually highlighting his blue eyes. But another one I'm going to talk about, hey Ribbonanza, and this is a really cool, for those of you who have not gotten the Session Zero system, this was designed by Gabe Hicks, and it's actually like a tarot card type layout. This is actually just the art book, but it's a deck of like three card decks, which I believe it's past, future, and bonds, and you pull these cards in your Session Zero, and everyone, it comes up with various things that your character can have. So there's like ally, this is not visible at all, ally, beloved, corruptor, diviner, and then descriptions of what that means. And so you'll go around, so like not designed by Gabe Hicks, who does have a lot of gay looking pics, and we love that for them, living their best life. So like under kindred, it says someone you can always rely on in treacherous times. How did you come to rely on them for these reassurances? What secrets do you both share? Is it yours or theirs? Why do you put faith in them over others? What is at stake if this information gets out? And so while you're sitting at the table, right, you pull the card and you're like, okay, this is my characters, and then you can say like, hey, I feel like I might have this connection with David's character. Or you might say, I'd like to have an NPC, right? And then you reach out to you work with the GM to kind of flesh that out. And it's a way of building bonds at the table. But also, like, again, a lot of what David and I do, and I assume what a lot of people are doing now, is we do them online. David and I don't live in the same state, much less the same city anymore. So many of our people have moved around. Oh, well, welcome back. Thank you for coming to hang out. But here's the cool thing. Like, there is a way to set up Roll20 so that you can draw cards, but you'd have to like scan the cards, upload them, get the correct kind of deck. Mix Hicks was smart enough to put there's 20 options for each. So now if I'm sitting down and we're getting ready to do this online, I could say, hey, so and so, roll a d20. And they're like, oh, I rolled a 19. And it's like, cool, you get Sanctuary. And so now I can give them all that information, including the super pretty picture, so that we can all build together, even if not every single person has access to a copy of the deck. Which, again, think about using roll tables in interesting and unexpected ways. You can do a similar thing for the deck of many things. I think each one has 20 cards. So again, you can roll a d20 and use that book to look up what it is if you don't have the deck.
The way I've gotten the most use out of roll tables, and again, a roll table doesn't necessarily have to be a roll table. It could just be a table. But the table that has gotten the most exercise out of all of the ones that I or we have developed is the block of names. Now, anyone who has been around me, both like in TTRPG spaces and with writing stuff, the thing I am worst at is naming things. Naming characters, story titles, any of that. I am awful. If you need a name for something, go to someone else. Find a professional, find an adult, because I can't help you.
Come talk to Kay. Kay likes naming things.
Right. And so I'll be running a game and you'll walk into the tavern and I'm like, yeah, well, you know, the bartender or the waiter comes by, drops off your drinks, walks off. What's the waiter's name? How dare you? The audacity, the fucking temerity.
Sorry the YouTube app's being laggy, but thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
That's something I will investigate. But I don't know this man's name. I don't know his man's name at all. And his name is probably going to start with an A because apparently the only names I like start with A. So I spent a lot of time both for like my writing stuff and my TTRPG stuff of just like grabbing names that I like and putting them somewhere. And now I have a document on my computer, a document in Google Drive, and an email draft, all packed to the gills with names.
Hey, Zykrim.
So when somebody's like, hey, that little orphan that ran by that you have no plans for, that has no backstory, that is not involved in this story at all, I can just
now.
be like, yeah, and now an entire quest chain is being built in front of my eyes.
Was it you? I don't remember. One of my GMs, and I feel like it was you, but I also just honestly don't remember. One of my GMs did the thing where they had a roll table or a list of names that they liked and accidentally grabbed the same name twice in a campaign, which spun off a whole bunch of conspiracy theories. We were like, wait, we know that name. And I'm like going through my notes and I'm like, yes, this is the guy. And the GM had to be like, okay, stop. That was just, how dare you take notes?
Right.
How dare you remember my characters' names when I do not? They're not the same person.
And a thing I do because, you know, I often run games through Discord, is there will be an entire Discord channel that's just like, here are these people. This person, short descriptor of person. It ain't for my players. Like they can see it. It's not for them. It's for me. Cause ooh-wee, will I not remember that grimy fuck from like 40 sessions ago that you made a note and then circled in your notes.
I don't circle it. I just underline it so it's easy to find.
And I saw someone on Twitter was talking about like note taking, and like one person was like, "Hey, one way to be invested in the game, one way to be a good player is to like take notes." And then another person was like, "GMs have a hard time keeping track of everything." And then another person was like, "I asked my players, me, David, full rubber ducky, will I start every session with, so what do you remember happened in the last session?" Because for a couple reasons. One, because about 10% of the time I have no fucking idea what happened in the last session. And about 40% of the time, it's so that everybody's on the same page of like where we left off. But about 50% of the time, what the players tell me and what actually happened in the last episode are just a little bit different. Thank you for the follow.
Yes,
Just a little. There's it's witness testimony in the judicial system. It is not even close to 100% accurate.
Candace.
And so I'm like, this is what we're going with. And I don't correct them. I don't be like, nah, you see what happened was. No. But we're all on the same page for the stuff that didn't happen, but now happened. I have had players try to gaslight me with false testimony, and I punish them for it. But yeah, like, is to make sure that we are all on the same page. And so, like, as a GM, take notes. As a player, take notes. But also, don't be shy about asking people about stuff, because you have a lot of plate spinning, and like, outside of like being like lazy and like irresponsible and all of these like moral judgments we make about people who don't take notes in games, different people find different things important. And so the more people who are taking notes the more people who are taking notes in a session, the fuller picture you have of what actually transpired. Because Kay doesn't like doing math. I put math in the game just to fuck with Kay because I'm a bad person. And so I will look at Kay and be like, so hey, 21 sessions ago, you had this much money. And then you've bought things since then. How much money do you have now? Like, what is the total amount of purchases and whatnot? And another member of the party will be like, well, in session 27, we as a party spent 2 sovereigns and a couple of ducats and some other things and some Jehoshaphat's to like feed an orphanage or whatever, and then we spent this and this, and Kay is the person who's carrying all our money, and so all of our money combined is this, and then we bought some fancy chocolate, and so what we have is 18 sovereigns, 72 ducats, and like 3 bottle caps. And I'll be like, God damn it, you foiled my plans. You foiled my plans to torment Kay for no fucking reason.
Kay will straight up tell you, I'm gonna ramble. See if you can poke at the D20 roll. It's not behaving.
Okay.
Like, know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Hey, Jason, I can take notes. I can do character. I will conspiracy theory. There's an infamous story of I got really annoyed because no one was paying attention that day. Like, there was a day where clearly the rest of the party, the brain was not in it, was not there. And I was like, no one's paying attention. These are 2 similar things. I'm going to put them together. And I started an entire chain. Oh, thank you so much for the subscription. I started a red herring quest chase. I knew this was not what we were supposed to do, but I started it. Everyone went, oh, Kay usually knows what they're talking about. That makes sense. That's what we're going to do. And we were prepared to go 5 in-game days out of our way to a location David had not dreamed up. And David had to be like, okay, stop.
First, there was the panic. First, there was the panic at the disco.
Here. I am rolling this d20. Oh, I'm rolling this d20 for you since it did not go off when last time you did. Let's see what you got. I need 1 second to do the thing. There. This is for you. Ugh.
Yikes.
We got a 5 and a 2. The dice roller is not rolling hot tonight. But yes, there was much panic. I saw the terror.
Yeah, first it was a panic. First it was like, okay, I had these things like loosely planned for like 6 months from now, but I gotta start throwing that shit together. How about no? How about all y'all motherfuckers turn around and go back the way you're supposed to go?
No, know your strengths, right? Like, so David and I will passive aggressively torture each other because David is like, I'm gonna make Kay do money, and Kay is like, I'm playing a character with low intelligence who is high nervous, and no, I'm not doing math. My character would not do math. I'm not doing math. Someone else can figure out the money, right? I will take notes about everything else, but I'm not, because David didn't just do. David is a jerk.
Yeah,
David is a jerk face. And David is like, we're not doing gold, silver, bronze. We're doing other complete fucking set of terms. And also it's not 1-to-1 with gold, silver, and bronze. Because you're in a place that are going to try to screw over people who look like you. And I'm like, cool, I'm not doing that part of the game. Someone else can engage with that, and we will do the thing. And then I will torture you for not paying enough attention while I am bored because no one else is paying attention. So I will send us all on a wild goose chase. This is my note. I have a notes problem. Some might say it's a note solution. My notes are immaculate. Now, my shitty handwriting notwithstanding, I take really great notes to both David's benefit and David's bane. They are dated. They have stars. They have cross-references. We do stuff.
And what's particularly funny that they haven't gotten to yet, but will get to with the money system, is part of why I did it this way, is because there are different currencies in other countries, and those currencies have an exchange rate with the country that they are in. And so there will come a point where they will try to do business with someone and they'll be like, here are drachmas. And the look and the blinking that y'all will share, it is one of the things that I've been excited about for years now.
Hey, we'll just shrug and say, I don't engage with this part of the game. And David knows that and is using that to torture other people, and we are fine with this.
And in addition to that, there are coins that aren't currency, but instead are markers for things. There's actually, I'm scrolling up. There's so much party inspiration.
It is not obstinate behavior. It is my reacting to my GM trolling me specifically and being aware of that fact.
Strips, sovereigns, marks, chips, and bits. I've spent the past like 60 seconds looking this up.
David, you put Bitcoin in our game?
Yeah, I put Bitcoin in the game, and the best part about it is the Bitcoin is the least valuable one.
Mm-hmm. But.
And there's a conversion for weight.
But. Yes. Roll tables.
I short circuited because I ruined it by making Gale blow himself next to a Drider. Is can be interpreted in ways, and then I remembered that Gale is a bomb.
Blow himself up. Very important correction.
Right. There's a distinction. There's a tiny distinction.
Well, and then, so another thing I was discussing with another person who is in the. Also, David, going back to the recap, you would love. In Baldur's Gate 3, there is a guy who is like half human, half spider. He's a drow. What are you, a drider? Ben, my GM for the Chalice game, would make us do recaps, and he'd be like, recap what happened last episode. You have exactly 2 minutes. And we'd start a timer, and if you went over or under, you did not get the perk of correctly explaining. Which was, only a little stressful. It was a horror game. But I was talking to another person who played in Chalice and who is currently running, what's it called? The One Ring system. We were talking about all the different ways that you can use role systems. And this is something you've talked about too, David, that I really appreciate is I love roll tables, but wow, is it great when it is incorporated in a way so when you're trying to set up, you can just hit the button. It's like, what's the prompt? Roll the table, roll the table. So you can pull out the book and you can flip through it and you can make it a whole thing. But oh my goodness, having that module, having that little click the button, get the result as a GM where you don't have to roll and look a thing up, where you can just be like, okay, we're good. That's a nice usable roll table. Giving people the option of having that just.
And also, we have talked about it on this channel. You see discussions pop up about it on Twitter. The conversation about railroading. And from a GM perspective, from a storytelling perspective, like you're trying to make a cohesive story for your players with a big bad. But then they also have the ability to wander off and do whatever they want. And so you have to design it in a way where all roads lead to, but also they have to have that flexibility and that freedom. And so it's this tough trade-off. And one of the ways that I have found to address this is there's a job board in the middle of town. There, and let's be real, like before Indeed, before Fiverr, there were marketplace and community boards where people could just walk up, tack up a thing, and like anyone
Haven't you ever
who's
played a farming game?
I was just thinking about starting. Update next Tuesday. You might not see me. I'll be here. I swear I'll be here. But if it looks like I'm playing a video game during the talk show, I am absolutely not playing Stardew.
It won't be out Tuesday before the talk show. It comes out after the talk show.
Boo. Anyway, but like anybody who's like been on a college campus, you've walked by a thing where it's like college tutoring, and it's just a board where you stick things on it. So you come up with a table for quest lines, or for just like day quests or like easy things to do, and they walk up and internally you can roll a die, or you could just look and be like, I like these 5 or whatever, and you could say, hey, here's what's tacked up today on this thing, and then you read out 5 things or 3 things, or there's only 1 thing that's left, but you give your players a bunch of options for what they want to decide to do, to go make a little bit of money, to go help the community, whatever motivates them. And you could even put stuff that's like that like speaks to certain characters in your party. Now, then you got to figure out how that circles back to the main story, but it is it offers a lot more freedom and it offers a lot more flexibility and it offers a lot more originality than you wake up in a tavern and then a person starts talking to you and then says, "Go fetch me this thing."
And yeah, like I recently played in. Hey, Laria, welcome on in. I recently played in a game. It was supposed to be a 3-shot. It was supposed to be real quick, and the GM clearly wanted us to engage with the plot a certain way. And a particular player decided that no, that's not what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And we like spent an entire episode that should have been in plot just in combat, just because this person wanted to go full murder hobo. And like the rest of us are like, we are leaving the room, we are leaving where the fight is. And it's like, cool, doesn't look like he's going to follow you. And it's like,
great, fantastic, delightful.
So while railroading, a lot of people are against it, right? But also following the GM story can make it a lot more fun for everyone else.
Yep.
But yeah, having and one thing that we were looking at too is when we were working, when we started working on our new system, our new setting, was an idea of here's a whole bunch of roll tables and you'll roll a bunch of them as the GM. And you'll be able to look over them and be like, okay, so here's like 6 things that can happen. I'm going to set the stage with 2 or 3 of these things. And then you'll have additional things in your back pocket. So if things start getting slow, you can pull it out and add some spice and make it more interesting. But also, you know, you've already dressed it with 2 or 3 things, and people can choose, your players can choose to interact with that. And if they're really super into whatever is happening, cool, let them just stay and focus on that. You don't need the rest of those things. Like we were talking about with the deck of many things, which again, we spent an entire episode on, how you can take those and flip them and lay them out and create a whole dungeon out of that. You can use that to create NPCs. And I think most of us, like poor Ribbonanza was explaining earlier about how the one time they GM'd, the party walked right past the plot and went and just harassed every NPC. Like having kind of roll tables and different ways to very quickly generate characters or very quickly generate events, so you can give yourself that much mental space to figure out how am I going to get everyone back to the plot, right? How am I going, because you got to get the party back to the main story. So they don't care about that NPC. Cool, that NPC just becomes, or the information that NPC is supposed to deliver just becomes whatever NPC they're interacting with. Because good gravy, y'all, go interact with the plot. Promise it's so much more fun when you play the game.
There was a thing about characters and roll tables, but I think I am browning out.
Also, if you don't have a full character name generator roll table, just Google furry name generator. I promise you'll have some of the best. That's what Stephanie does.
Okay, there are so many fantasy name generator tools out there,
but they're not furry.
you skipped straight to furry.
Mm-hmm. That's how this person was before your time, but this was how Kinley met Thezik. Literally spelled Vzak, but it's one word named Thezik. And Kinley had to work very hard, but won the respect and or friendship of an ASMR cobbler named not Vzak, Thezik.
I recall. Okay, so Chekhov's gun, another like literary term. And it's literally based off of this dude who wrote a story. Guy walks into a room, there's a gun on the wall. No. He states that if a character walks into a room and there's a gun on the wall, and you spend time talking about the gun on the wall, that motherfucker got to go off. Like they got to go boom boom. And it is a storytelling device where you put stuff in places, and then either the audience who reads or watches sees the characters interact with a thing, and then it's useful, and then they feel very clever for putting that together ahead of time, or you put it somewhere, and then your players are like, "Oh man, there's a thing here. What if I could?" And you can see, especially like in the third act of all of our charity games, there's a Chekhov's gun in every room, and you don't necessarily have to use it, but it's there if you want to figure out something cool to do with it. And quite often, either players grab a thing and do something with it, or we're in like the green room after the show, and they're like, "Okay, listen, I saw this thing, and I was like, I could take it and do blah 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 with it, and I think that'd be really cool." And then we're like, that's why it was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was there for you to do that precise thing with it. So roll tables are great, or tables are great because like in every iteration of D&D, in the PHB, and I think in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there is a loot table, where like you go into a place, and then like in a lot of the modules, especially the beginner modules, they're like, this is the things that you can find in here, roll a d20 and you get this amulet or ring or boots or whatever. But you can make items or plot points or even rumors. Like Kay said, like, you know, you might have to make this person a quest person, but you could also do two truths and a lie if you really want to like give your players some bullshit. And so you have a table of lies and a table of truths, and you grab two off of this table and one off of this table. Or do what I do. There's a town crier that talks about the news every day. And one of those stories circles back to the main plot. And so in your downtime, because remember, long rests are not just sleeping, it's downtime. In your downtime, you know, when I am GMing, I am assuming that your character is smart enough to get the things that they need. So, like, if you're a hunter,
we don't track arrows, basically.
Yeah, we don't track arrows. I don't track food and like those sorts of supplies unless it's an extreme environment and so on. And so, you know, we assume that you go to the market and you buy like vegetables, and you hear the town crier while you're getting vegetables and spell components.
Hey, JD.
And so a player will ask me, "Hey, so what did I hear from the town crier?" And I don't go, "Oh my God, I have to make up something." I go to the table and I grab three things off of it, and I'm like, "You heard about this, this, and this," and again, ultimately, the thing about tables is this: limiting. So your players are always going to throw a curveball at you, and your GM is always going to throw a curveball at you, and there's going to be a moment of like blank panic. And the idea of roll tables is to not only limit blank panic, but limit blank panic to the fun type of blank panic. Like the very sexy bartender is flirting with you, and you don't know what you're supposed to do, and you're just like, as opposed to, "Hey, what's this person's name?" Because that's not the fun panic. That doesn't make you look like a cool GM.
And having roll tables, even generic ones, right? Because we talk about the Chekhov's gun, right? Like, how many times we've all heard the anecdote of like, I'm GMing, I tell everyone take a long rest, you know, everyone we're on the road, the party settles down. I'm like, it's you're hunkering down, you're preparing for your whatever, and you hear, a wolf howl, and someone's like, what's the moon? Is the moon full tonight? Did we just hear a werewolf? And the GM's like, you did now, like
Right.
changing the plan for the encounter, right? Like you throw, I know someone, Sebastian earlier said Adventure Zone, which I haven't watched much of the Adventure Zone. I know there's some really big Adventure Zone fans in here, but like the one I keep thinking about is in Critical Role, they kept encountering, like they were traveling and in campaign 2, and they like got ambushed by a group of thieves, and of course they mopped the floor with these thieves, and then later on they rolled on the encounter table and got another ambush by a set, and they're like, are these the same ones? And Mercer's like, you know what, yeah, they're the same ones. And so they had like 3 of these ambush encounters, and it kept being the same people until they reformed the bandits, and Mercer took them off the roll. Like, there was also an amazing moment in A Court of Fey and Flowers where I don't remember their name, but one of the not regular players, one of the guest players, was like, her character gave another character a key and is like, here, this is for you. And then like a couple episodes later, which again, Dimension 20, shorter seasons, a couple episodes means a lot's happened. He's like, give me that key back. Give me that key back. It's cursed. It was going to make all of your hair fall out. And they're like, what? And they were talking to her after, and she was like, I wanted to just put something out there. I didn't know what the key was going to do when I put it out there. But if I put it out there, then I would know what to do with it. And it's very much, again, I've taken some improv classes. And one of the big things is like, don't worry about making the right choice. Make a choice and then make that choice the right one. Right? So when you're putting things out there as a GM or as a player, throw something out, and maybe you don't know exactly what that gift is going to do. I do think it's important to communicate that to your GM. Hey, I gave them this thing. I feel like I want it to blah, da, 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 and the GM can usually then work with you, right? But do be aware, do work with your GM. Just don't be like, I gave you this thing. This thing is actually cursed, and ha ha ha. Now that's not how you do it. But make a choice. Put a thing out there. Be it an item, be it a location, be it a decision, and then work to make that the right one. And again, no roll table is going to give you the specific item that you need, but put an item out there, and maybe you don't know exactly what it is, but you'll find out in time.
Cool Sebastian makes an interesting point. For real, I kind of get annoyed when my fellow characters are too careful, like just do something. And this is both and I'm not going to call it a problem, but like this is something that is both the responsibility of the GM and the responsibility of the players. Like, everybody who's played Baldur's Gate 3 has walked into a room and failed a perception check and been like, and then for the rest of the time you are in there, you walk forward a little bit, you look around, you walk, and then you step on a trap and you blow up. But it's why, so like originally I really hated the concept and the execution of traps in Dungeons and Dragons, and I have since like massaged it to a point where I'm happy with it, because in the long ago, when it was just a meat grinder that was adversarial and designed to kill your characters, traps were everywhere. And so if you didn't have a rogue in the party who checked for traps under every nook and cranny, then it got you. And like people who've played like Baldur's Gate like 1 and 2, there are definitely like sections of the game where you're like, why are there traps here? Fucking why? There's no need. Anyway, and so like, you know, much like we make the joke of like, I have dark vision or I cast Eldritch Blast. There was a time when the joke was, are there any traps here from the rogue? And the way I've addressed it is, I don't think in any game I've run, a player has run into a trap yet. And that doesn't mean I have erased them from my world. I have put them in very specific places where it makes logical sense for them to be there. And there's a ton of like environmental storytelling to be like, by the way, this place is booby trapped. And like a good example of something that Kay has run is the game where you rob the
job.
The job. Yeah, the game where you rob the lady, and the lady's like, you ain't gonna come in here and just take my stuff. This place is booby trapped to the fucking gills. And that makes sense. And that is, and so like the whole point of that is, yes, as a player, you have to be willing to push the button. You have to be willing to do the thing, but it's also important as a GM that you foster an environment where players feel safe to do so. Like whenever we run Godplay, we sit the players down and we're like, listen, it's a horror game. And then I'll tell the players, I'm like, look at me. I'm not running upstairs away from the killer. I am not reading the old language in the book Bound by Flesh. Like, I am not, if I find a weird like effigy out in the woods, I'm not picking it up and looking at it and moving it somewhere. I'm not doing any of the horror like movie things. I'm not doing it. That said, we want you as a player to feel comfortable and confident to interact with things. Because yes, there will be some scary stuff, but we made sure to put good stuff out there so that everything you look at, you don't go, well, that's a trap. Well, that's like a scary thing. Well, that's a thing that you don't want to interact with, because then you won't touch anything, and then you just walk past everything. No, we want you, like there's one point where you sit, or where you walk into a room, and there are 2 chairs covered with sheets, and there's obviously like something underneath them, and one of them is a cool thing, and the other one eats you. And so, you know, you go in and then you like whip off the cover of one and you're like, that's a cool thing. That's pretty good. And then you have to ask yourself, do you want to roll the dice? Do you really want to? And again, it's important to foster a safe environment for your players where they are comfortable interacting with the world that you give them.
And giving people different ways to interact with that too. So when I ran the job and David was playing it, it's, those of you who don't know, this is inspired by a Critical Role one shot, but it's basically 4 rogues and a sorcerer breaking into the house of the most powerful magic user in the city. And David's character was the sorcerer, was the kind of inside person. And thank you for that clip, Logan. And the rogues found, hey Chris, identified, avoided a bunch of traps on their way in, and then they get into the house. A thing happens. David's character books it back, like runs away, and I'm like, okay, so David, y'all found and avoided that one particular like rope trap on your way in. And David's like, oh no, my character didn't think about that. So they go chasing after their inside person and just find him sitting in the hallway going, just holding his bruised shin. And again, traps can be a pain, but they're also great ways to give your players character moments like that. Because again, I play a very high-strung character in the Emergency Power Podcast. There is no greater joy than when I very clearly set them up to take the L. I set up an opportunity for their pride to be mortally wounded by the entire party, and watching everyone be like, oh, it's Soul Duncan time. Let's go. Like, everyone gets their little jabs in, and then we can all go back to being a party, and they can go back to tolerating them for being so high-strung. It just makes it more fun. And again, the more you can put things in so that people can interact with them and put their own twists on them, it's great. Don't forget about hazards. If you want a trap that technically doesn't make sense and you want to add damage, then the attack becomes a spooky mansion. All the attic beams in the spooky mansion are rotted. Yes. I played in a game where a group had already gone through, like half the party had already gone through this place that was full of traps. And there was like this one area where it was very clearly telegraphed. There were like holes in the wall and arrows were shooting through. And the other half of the party one of them had like a water magic. And so they did like got across without being damaged. So now there's holes in the wall and water on the ground. And I was playing Owenya, who is not very smart. Owenya is not an intelligent individual. But was like, oh, we got to get across this. Observed it, did a leap, was not faster than the arrows, right? Took some damage, and then walked away from that experience telling everyone, watch out for water on the floor. If there's water on the ground, it's a trap. Which is not the takeaway, but incredibly fun and like a really fun way to just explain this character doesn't think the way most characters do. My Starfinders are now wary of ... everything that isn't right off the production line. That totally makes sense. My players ace their rolls to find a nasty trap outside a secure storage facility that they were not supposed to find. Oops. Oh, sucks that there were actually two, says Logart, right? We accidentally found the big bad of the path, adventure path, like 3 levels before we were supposed to fight the big bad, and that was a problem. But yes, having again, I'm gonna plug this because at PAX Unplugged, I was part of the Double Bubble Toil and Trouble TTRPG tarot cards in TTRPG, and different ways of using tarot within D&D, within various games. And the incredible Jess, who I work with and who was on the panelist with me, spoke about how she plays a lot of chaotic neutral or true neutral characters. And it's really hard sometimes to figure out how a true neutral will react. Right? Because there's chaos. I can do chaos, right? Lawful, that there's some different ways you can interpret lawful, right? But neutral, it's like, well, how do you actually play it? And to help Jess, like, Jess is one of those incredible performers, incredible players, but like sometimes doesn't drop into the character as quickly as I do, and wants to keep up that neutrality. So she will actually pull from a tarot deck, and she knows tarot well enough where she'll look at this and she'll be like, oh, that's a wands. That has a lot to do with, definitive action and quick moving emotion. So my character is going to react quickly and with emotion. Whereas if it pulls a sword, sword is like thought and maybe aggression, maybe logic. So that's how it's going to describe it. So again, we're talking about roll tables, but not necessarily restricting it to here's an Excel sheet with numbers and you roll a dice. Like, there's lots of different ways you can use a roll table, be it a tarot deck, be it a session 0 system, be it dice, to get the answer or get the tools that you're looking for. Be it a furry name generator.
Yeah. Yeah. That wounds me. That's still. But yeah. And like, whether it's like hazards, trap, um, like cursed item. Remember, there are three types of encounters. There's a person encounter, there's a combat encounter, and there's a puzzle encounter. And trap, navigating a hazard, but like getting over a mountain, getting into a building, um, decursing an item. All these things are just puzzle encounters. And like most of us think like puzzles of like Gandalf sitting outside the Mines of Moria, being like, "Huh, speak friend and enter. What does that mean?" But or like God, I just had like a Star Trek thing. For anybody who has seen the Die Hard franchise, in Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is a just brilliant, brilliant film for a lot of reasons, Jeremy Irons makes the best villain. But you have Bruce Willis as a New York cop, and the villain is like, you got a 3-gallon jug and a 5-gallon jug. Put 4 gallons into this 5-gallon jug and then put it on the scale, or else you die, or else you go kaboom. And so you have this guy just being like, how dare you make me do math?
Right?
How
That's
dare
just
you
make
unkind. Make me do a thought logic puzzle? I am a police officer, okay? If I'm too smart, I can't do this job. I have a badge and a gun and temerity. Like that's all I need to do my job. Smarts never figured into this. And that is a logic, a puzzle obstacle placed in front of the cop. And so like, remember that your encounters are obstacles placed in front of your players, and they come in 3 flavors. And knowing that, you can build a bunch of tables based off of that. Like I said earlier, like you can have a table of things that a person will say to your players, or things that your players will overhear. And that is a person encounter that you have a table for. And then, if there's a design philosophy of the 5-room dungeon. And that's something we'll have to unpack on another episode. But one of those is like, this is a puzzle encounter in this room. And so, like, you have empty rooms, you have person rooms, you have combat rooms. But the puzzle room could be the Indiana Jones, like the ceiling is sinking, could be the Star Wars trash compactor, could be you have to figure out, or it could be the Legend of Zelda, you have to light the brazier so the door will unlock, like, or just the room is just scattered with bear traps. And if anybody has watched me play any game that has bear traps in them, it's like the bear traps call to my feet and I have to step in them, and it infuriates me because I'll be looking right at it and somebody will be like looking over my shoulder and be like, "Hey, there's a bear trap there, don't step in it." And I'm like, "Oh, this bear trap? Oh yeah, I'm not gonna step on it. Wait, where did it go? Where's the bear?" And then it'll be in front of me, I will back up and that motherfucker will go off and snatched me by the ankle, and I'm like, how did this motherfucker get behind me? Anyway, the point is like, you can have a table of like different things that are puzzle encounters. You can make a table for most things.
The freaking puzzle encounter. You weren't here for this one yet. But Stephanie, in our home game, we were in kobold tunnels. And it was like, always take the smaller path and never wait too long, right? That was like the rules we were given to get through, because we had to get through these kobold tunnels so we could see a baby dragon hatch. And Kenley was not going to miss seeing the baby dragon.
Not going to miss it.
And so we're going through, and we come up to a door with a bunch of sliding letters on it. And everyone is trying to, like, Kenley like looks at it, it's like, I'm sure I have no idea. Voth, you're smart. And Everyone's messing with it, messing with it, messing with it. And finally, the door opens. It was never locked. We just had to try the doorknob.
You got critical rolled. Got it.
Mm-hmm. No, it was straight up never locked. The puzzle was a complete distraction, and we missed the baby dragon hatch.
Oh, it's good that Kessler doesn't know about this. And I had it and I lost it. Will I get it? Will I get it?
Bear traps, encounters, doors.
You see, I got distracted by like my brain immediately went like, how would Kessler use this against Kinley? It's gone. It might come back.
Okay. But yes, roll tables are good. Obviously, there are moments like
I remembered. Okay. Roll tables don't always have to be serious. So, I'm obviously I'm a fan of words. I'm a fan of witty turns of phrases. I play a game with a couple of my friends where the loading screen is these really just like obtuse, asshole-ish, darkly themed, like one-line statements from the Warhammer universe. And so I was like, somebody had to compile a list of these. Someone compiled a list of them. And so I went in and grabbed it. And I was just like, oh man, this is cool. But in my D&D games, at the start of every session, now I spent, look, we have seen multiple people fall down this trap where you get in the sticks doing some sort of world building or doing a part of your project that isn't the meat and potatoes of your project. Like, you know, you end up like developing like a whole line of greeting cards for your one shot, and you're like, that's neat, that's cool, it's in the theme of what you, but do you have a plot? Do you have a villain? Does the villain have a motivation? No, you don't have any of those. The greeting cards aren't getting you closer to the job, buddy. Like, is that, did I get it closer? Anyway. But I got lost in the sticks, as happens to all of us. And I dug up a bunch of like funny phrases and punny one-liners. And so at the beginning of every session, I go to my roll table full of these, and then I drop them in chat, and that like sort of sets the tone for the day. Have you seen my cloak of hiding? I forget what like the when is a door not a door when it's ajar, like other stupid shit like that. And that's also a table I have. And like Kay said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a roll table. Like it doesn't have to be associated with like oh man, some of the Christmas ones we had. Oh man,
yes,
so
yes.
good, especially like the cookies.
Kay is hunting for, I don't know where. So again, I played in Chalice, and in Chalice we played. We used the Into the Breach system, which you don't use dice, you use a deck of playing cards, and the different suits have different things that correlate to your abilities. And I was trying to find this because I thought surely I have it in those notes, and then I couldn't find them, and I'm like, surely I have it in these notes, and I can't find it. But one of the things that happens is you pull your stats. You get your stats by drawing cards. And then when you get to the end of that, you like sorry, I'm still looking for it, and I need to focus on verbing instead of so you pull the cards that decide what your stats are, and then you keep track of those, and they have different statements attached to every card, so you actually end up with a really creepy like character prediction, like fortune attached to your character. And they're really cool.
And
I'm going to see if I can find some, even if it's not my characters personally.
And having a bunch of tables doesn't mean you're bad at it.
But yeah, those are different ways you can actually Mr. Life Producer was on and talking about, with StreamerBot, with Twitch, everyone has a unique ID, and so he can actually pull things and assign stats based off that unique idea, and you could use that to get a roll table, to get some kind of like fortune, like super customized not prediction, but fortune, cryptic statement, just for you. Like, there's some cool stuff you can do with that sort of thing.
And having roll tables, building roll tables, and using roll tables.
I cannot hear you, and I'm not sure if it is my headset being a poop again, or if it has stopped working altogether. It might just be my headset.
Boop, boop, boop. Okay, I'm
Hold
bouncing.
on, we'll do this.
What about now?
Let's see. I still cannot hear you.
Still cannot.
Okay. Gilmore, I would normally not blame Gilmore for this, but David will confirm. Gilmore was on me earlier and did something to my headset where I stopped being able to hear him.
Yep, it happened live. Like, we're green rooming, we're doing the thing. I'm roasting somebody, and then Gilmore pops up on Kay's shoulder, walks around on him, and like ass and tail brush the headset, and then the headset's like, I give up. I don't work anymore. It doesn't work. But while Kay sorts this out, it is my turn to rant. But so having roll tables doesn't mean having roll tables and having tables doesn't mean that you're a bad GM. It doesn't mean that you are bad at improv. It doesn't mean that you have like a bunch of crutches and whatnot. It is a tool like any other. And again, not only in D&D, in the PHB and the DMG, but in many, many, many systems, they give you roll tables. And so obviously it's there, much like summons in Dark Souls. You're supposed to use them. And it doesn't make you a badass if you don't use them, even though I don't use summons in Dark Souls. But just like the streamer bot thing that we have that like invents an adventure, there are tons and tons and tons of tables that are just there for inspiration. I have gone and looked at there's a website that has like 300 plot hooks on it. And I went and I read every plot hook and I went, I'm using none of these. But that put me in the right frame of mind, that gave me like the right framework in my brain to then come up with something that wasn't on that list that I found very compelling. And there are other times where I've gone and like, even just like random name generators, I've gone and clicked on random name generators for a tavern. Or specifically for brothels. I really struggle. There's a brothel in one of the games that I have, and I really struggled with like the name for. And so I went, and there's a random name generator for brothels. Makes me a little uncomfortable, but it generated a name, and I was like, I really like this name. And then it immediately made me think, where did this name come from? And so it built out both a lore and multiple characters and a quest chain associated with it, all from this name that came from a random table, like a random generator. And so whether you use random name generators, whether you look up tables online, whether you build your own tables, even if you don't necessarily pull something off of them, they can be used to inspire and ground and orchestrate a lot of your thinking when it comes to what you're doing. Same thing with like regional and ethnic names. Like, if you looked at me and said, David, come up with 5 Viking names, I'd be like, www.google.com, because I I am not a Viking. I know nothing about Vikings. I know very little. The only thing I know about Vikings is they can sail, and their helmets don't have the horns on them. That's the full extent. And apparently they bathed, which was weird at the time. Which I'm not going to go there, but also a certain sub ethnic group of men really needs to wash their legs. Like just get in there, okay? But um there are tons of things that I don't necessarily like know about or have a frame of reference about, and those tables can work as inspiration and lead to a lot of things that you didn't previously conceive of.
Yeah. And again, throw something out there and see what your players do with it. Because that's where things get really fun. Throw something out there. It doesn't have to be the exact thing. Put it out. See what they interact with, and then go with it. Okay, here.
You found it?
Well, I couldn't find the exact thing I was looking for, but
As is tradition. And this is a great example. Kay and I both, multiple times this episode, have stopped to look for a thing. And so, if...
This is my incredibly cool chalice deck.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
It is metallic and has lots of skulls. My farthest ancestor helped drive the Vikings out of Brittany. That's cool.
That is an excellent legacy. Anyone who bullies the Brits, I am a fan of. But so like, this is a good example. Over the course of this episode, you've seen Kay and I both try to pull stuff from our memory, and we're like, oh well, there was and then we've gone and found the tables that we were talking about, and then listed the stuff off effortlessly because we could just look over and read it. And that saves so much time and, like Rex said, so much mental energy that you could use elsewhere. That it is an incredibly convenient and useful tool. And I strongly recommend them as a way to prep for the things that you're doing.
Okay. So for this is the 7 of clubs, which is the 7 of ravens in this. If you open the box, best left closed. 8 of clubs is 8 of tomes. She must lurk within your joyless paradise. 2 hearts. For the gloom will deny that it knows you, and the leaves will whisper your name. So that's what would decide my character stats. And then you have that weird little cryptic statement that, again, doesn't necessarily mean anything. But wow, it can start playing into your mind about what's going to happen with this character. Like, even though this is a completely random table, right? It starts playing into your mind about, well, what does that mean? Who's the she and what's she going to whisper, right? Like, so again, it doesn't have to be super custom to the game or to the setting. People will make it custom. Ooh, D100 Tavern table drink. Yeah. When in Emergency Power Podcast, we went to a city that had a casino, and Adam had made specialty drinks. And every drink, not only was it special and like a custom cocktail themed to that place, it also had, like, every drink had an effect that came with it. So you could either roll and just be like, surprise me, and roll and get it. You could ask for a particular drink, or you could bribe the bartender to tell you about the drink and learn the effect and buy the drink based on the effect.
Cool. Drinks. Another example of roll tables. A unusual example of roll tables. On the Tiki-Takis, on the TikToks. Also, why do old people make things plural when they're not? When they're like, are you out there playing the Nintendos again? And it's like, for one, it's one Nintendo. For two, most of what people play is not. Never mind. On the Tiki-Takis, there's a guy that does sushi and sashimi. And one of the series he has is he made a bunch of roll tables for ingredients that go into sushi. And so he'll roll, and it's like type of fish, filling, like random fillings, and like sauce, and then like preparation method. And so he'll do an episode where he'll film himself rolling a d20, and then whatever he rolls off the roll table is what he goes and makes. And then he's like, let's see if this is any good. And quite often it's excellent, and occasionally it's awful. Like, it's a really clever approach to it that generates new things that he wouldn't have otherwise tried. Do not do this with alcohol. Do not do
King's
this
Cup is not
with
a game
alcohol.
you will win.
If you start mixing random shit together, we have been mixing alcohol for hundreds of years now. There are cocktail recipes from like 175 years ago. Trust your ancestors on this, because if you start mixing random shit together, one, things coagulate. Things turn into, there's literally a drink called the cement mixer. Don't do it. And two, there are alcohols that were never meant to be together, or alcohol and ingredients that were never meant to be together, and it will be like a Dr. Robotnik drill to your insides, okay? Mm-hmm. Comically large and way too efficient. Yeah, JD says, cooking streamer I watch is doing her own chopped thing with random ingredients written on paper. She pulls two papers from the jar and she has to use them both. No, and it's not the roll for sandwich guy, because the roll for sandwich guy is a different guy, and those look delicious as shit too. Like, roll tables are great. You should use them. You should go make a roll table tonight and post it on Twitter so that other people could use your cursed monstrosity to ruin their own lives. I highly recommend it.
And with that, we have been talking about roll tables, or mostly talking about roll tables, for an hour and a half, so it's probably about time for us to wind down. But just in the spirit of, because I pulled it up, for the Lullaby for Christmas Lich, we had a Christmas Wild Magic, a holiday-themed Wild Magic Surge table. And I want to read off a couple. 48. If anyone would like to throw numbers in chat, I will read off a couple of these. I'm very proud of them. 48 was you, in all caps, must have some figgy pudding. You demand figgy pudding of every creature you encounter until someone brings you a figgy pudding.
How big is the list? What's the number range?
It's 100.
Okay.
A personal favorite of mine, number 69. You are struck with the overwhelming urge to make the Yuletide gay.
Big mood.
86. You summon gift wrap at will. Lasts for 1d12 days, which I believe is what Jen rolled.
Yeah.
33 was an elf on the shelf appears on your shoulder. It spends the next 1d6 minutes whispering all the naughty things everyone around you has done into your ear. 91. You summon Snow and Wilson. He is hostile to you.
Oh, I forgot about that one. God, I forgot about that one.
1. For the next 1d4 days, you have the unshakable urge to place coal in the stockings of anyone who is rude or naughty. And for those of you who don't know, one of our very first Christmas charity games, we had a Snowman Wilson, and Snowman Wilson was a snowman who raised smaller snowmen to do his bidding. So he was a snowcromancer named Snow and Wilson, and Snow and Wilson would summon little snowmen called Snowmen Wilsons.
And to this day, that pun, Snowman Wilsons, will live in infamy. I will be on my deathbed cursing Snow and Wilson and Snowman Wilsons.
You have definitely joined at the optimum time. We are winding down. We were just reading off some things from our Wild Magic holiday surge list, as we're unfortunately coming towards the end of our time. But yes, Snow and Wilson will taunt David to the end of his days, because he went, yes, ship it, put it in, and then live on stream was like, why did we do this? Why did I allow this?
Snow and Wilson spoke one word of common. And look, everything about our beloved Snowcromancer hurts me physically. And I hate to concede that is one of our most precisely that. And I hate to concede that it is one of our most brilliant and diabolical creations.
Yep.
And again, I make villains that I just want to punch directly in the fucking face.
None of them hold a candle.
Oh, yeah, fair. Huh.
Yeah, something is being a little weird. StreamerBot updated. David made the mistake of saying, yes, go ahead and update before we went live. So we have to go fight with StreamerBot again. David's favorite thing. We will figure that out.
It is 10 out of 10 my favorite thing to do. Okay.
But go, when you have some downtime, make a roll table. Go look up a roll table. Again, don't be afraid to borrow inspiration from other roll tables. Be sure to credit where you can, because credit is cool. And yeah, we're gonna go raid someone and wander away for the evening. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We will be back Thursday and Friday playing Baldur's Gate 3 in our co-op first playthrough. We are in the second act in the Shadow Cursed Lands. Managed to talk ourselves out of out of a couple really tough fights after getting TPK'd again. And
we did Yeah, we
We
did catch
did.
some hands.
Yeah, because you went to go fight our gold friend
Yeah.
without me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Saturday. That's correct, right? Saturday. This week we will be doing Body and Soul, the final episode of Body and Soul, which will take place in the modern day time and era. Good to see what our gods are up to. And again, not this weekend, but the following weekend, Thursday and Friday and Saturday, I will be at PAX East. I'm going to be on 2 panels. If you are interested in tarot and TTRPG or building better boundaries from the start, I'm going to be on a Take This panel talking about boundaries and personal safety while streaming and how to keep communities safe and non-toxic and how to deal with things like, trauma dumping and all that good stuff. So thank you all for hanging out with us today. I hope you're having a great time. Do we want to go see Xander, David?
Yeah, we'll go check out Xander.
We'll go wander over. Xander's doing Legend of Zelda. Can't go wrong with Legend of Zelda. Thank you all so much. Be kind to yourselves, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time.